In our top stories tonight, plans announced to construct a biomass waste-to-energy plant. Used car dealers and the Commerce Minister reach an understanding. Barbadian children in state care better equipped to cope with the COVID-19 pandemic. And in sports, the Windies and England set to create history tomorrow in the first biosecure test match.
Newsnight Headlines was brought to you compliments Omega XL.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC Newsnight, starting now.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Broom. Thanks for joining us. In our top story tonight, parliamentarians have been discussing changes to the Fair Trading Commission Act and the Utilities Regulation Bill. The amendments will, among other things, give the FTC power to set rates for the renewable energy sector. Well, our Ryan Broom joins us now to give us more details about that debate. Ryan?
Well, good evening, Lisa. Now, Minister of Small Business, Entrepreneurship and Commerce, Dwight Sutherland, led off debate on the changes, saying government recognizes the renewable energy industry can contribute significantly to economic growth.
And what served from 2001 to present must be amended to reflect market conditions and international trends. And this is part of this government's mandate of deconstructing and reconstructing policies and methods and methodologies to make them fit for purpose in a modern Barbados. And we need to get the regulatory agenda right if we are to move forward in this renewable energy sector.
But Lisa, during that debate, the Commerce Minister made a major announcement: the construction of a multi-million-dollar biomass waste-to-energy plant. Now, the proposed plant is earmarked for Vaucluse in St. Thomas. Mr. Sutherland says the investment is a result of team effort and all prospects look good.
It will address our garbage situation because we are burning organic waste, disposing of organic waste, and through the Minister of Agriculture, he will make available all the fallow land, all the idle land to be used for the production of biomass. And he has already identified that. Because when we start this plant, we are looking at 20% local organic waste and we're importing 80%. But that can't deter us because all the cost-benefit analysis, they're being done by Minister Cattle and her team.
And the minister adds that officials are working on the rate for this biomass technology.
As I speak to you, the Fair Trading Commission is busy preparing a rate for biomass technology for a waste-to-energy plant at Vaucluse in St. Thomas. And, Mr. Speaker, the size of this plant is a 25-megawatt waste-to-energy and biomass plant. And the investment for this plant is some 320 million Barbados dollars of investment. So when you can sit and tell me that this government ain't working, something is wrong.
Energy Minister Wilfred Abrams is calling on Barbadians to grasp the investment opportunities that will arise in the renewable energy sector. Now, during his contribution in today's parliamentary debate, he explained a final policy governing the sector will be soon available.
The stated policy of the government is that 30%, a minimum of 30% of any renewable energy project has to be held in local hands. The final policy is going to emanate sometime very shortly, sir, but that's the Prime Minister's stated policy, and we're working towards codifying that. But 30% of a minimum of 30% of the renewable energy space in Barbados is now going to be held for Barbadians.
And Minister Abrams also pointed out that some state-owned enterprises could benefit from funding from the sector's earnings.
They're carve-outs for special people. So for all the charitable institutions, there's intended to be a carve-out of a certain percentage of the renewable energy space to fund charities. There's intended to be a carve-out of that renewable energy space, 15%. a minimum of 15% for the Barbados Water Authority to fund capital projects. There's intended to be a carve-out, I believe, for the Sanitation Service Authority. So because of the possible generation of money, we are actually looking at how do we fund the state agencies or the agencies that are a drain and cripple the consolidated fund.
Now, meanwhile, leader of the opposition, Bishop Joseph Atherley, is concerned that big businesses may have too much influence in Barbados.
Now, fair competition is quite fine, and we need to have that. We need to have fair competition in the market. But I often wonder, why is it that when we come to the matter of fair competition and adjustments must be made, the adjustments must always be made by those who are on the smaller side of the business rather than those who are on the bigger interest side of business. So when adjustments are to be made, it is easy to identify the smaller players, the smaller business people, the smaller enterprises, to make those adjustments.
And Mr. Atherley has also weighed in on the water challenges in rural Barbados and the impact on Barbadians. Now, he says in 2020, the situation has to be managed better. Now, well, Lisa, but that's it from Parliament for now. It's back over to you.
Thanks, Ryan, for that comprehensive report from today's sitting. In other news now, it seems there's been an easing of the tension between Commerce Minister Dwight Sutherland and the major players of the used car importers industry. This after Minister Sutherland convened a meeting with them last evening. Shane Jones has been following that story.
Now, ever since a story broke with Minister Sutherland speaking about the state of affairs between new and used car dealers in Barbados following a meeting with NASCO officials more than a week ago, his comments have become somewhat of a national debate. Barbadians took to social media expressing their feelings on the issue, while some of the used car dealers publicly voiced their opinions. While the Commerce Minister is maintaining media silence on the issue, CBC understands many of the imported car dealers are now satisfied after yesterday's meeting. We spoke to General Manager of Shine Automotive Inc., Dario Greenidge. He says he was shocked after reading the initial story, but yesterday's meeting answered his questions.
All of us had the same opinion. Like, we were like, what's really going on? Is this something that's taken out of context? Is this exactly what he's trying to say? Like, is he's trying to say he's going to shut us down or what? So I was a bit shocked, and you know, I needed clarity at that point in time.
So what came out of last evening's meeting?
Yesterday was a very productive meeting. I think the minister did bring to light a lot of the things and plans that he has for the industry. Certainly, he outlined and he said to us that basically we will have a stake in terms of designing the policy to shape the industry, to shape the used car and the automotive industry that we work within. I felt good about that. He also mentioned about the other opportunities that will be created as a result of this policy, and us being able to not just to be able to import cars a little easier, but obviously be able to have cars and have a framework to work within to be able to get our cars on the road and in the consumer's hand at a very competitive price.
In fact, Mr. Greenidge says coming out of that meeting, a decision has been made among the imported car dealers to form a consortium.
We're going to be looking at the full value chain of vehicle sales, imports, and the after-sales services as well. So I feel good about it. I think it's going to definitely be an opportunity that will create job opportunities. It will create business opportunities as well for new business and to develop businesses as well. So I'm certainly looking forward to the policy and to the further developments with the consortium.
Shane Jones, CBC News.
Barbadian children in state care, as well as those in school, are better equipped to face the COVID-19 pandemic. This is thanks to a timely collaborative donation by USAID Eastern and Southern Caribbean Mission and the UNICEF Office for the Eastern Caribbean area. The handover of infection control supplies was made yesterday afternoon at the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs in Warrens. Minister Cynthia Ford said the initiative will institute measures that will help sensitize parents and guardians about COVID-19.
I've learned of the radio series, COVID-19 Supporting Our Children, of the training for evangelical leaders and power leaders on child protection during COVID-19. They've provided that funding and that kind of technical support. I am proud to have also learned of the plan to disseminate posters and other communication materials in our schools. At present, the return to school and the ongoing education of our children, those two are extremely critical.
The Child Care Board and the government industrial schools are beneficiaries of the donation, and GIS Deputy Principal Ronald Brathwaite says he's grateful schools have been included.
This equipment will help us also, continue to help us in keeping our protocols in place so that everyone coming into the compound are tested in terms with thermometers, have to wear a mask, all the protocols in place when everyone entering, inclusive of staff and visitors. And this donation has gone a very long way in helping us to keep the environment very safe for one and all.
Barbados' transition to online learning has received another boost. This through the donation of 4,000 tablets to Barbadian school children. The donation comes from Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary Robin Rihanna Fenty's Clara Lionel Foundation in association with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey's #StartSmall initiative. Speaking on the donation, Prime Minister Mia Amor-Motley says education is one of the most important gifts children can receive, and she thanked Rihanna for her assistance.
To the extent that we can receive assistance from those who care enough, who love us enough to be able to help us lift the burden on this long journey, then we say thank you, because we can always do it better when we do it together. We are always stronger when we work together. And Robin, as usual, thank you. Your Bajanness, your commitment to this country, your commitment to this region in the context of building climate resilience has not gone unnoticed. The world has watched you be that extraordinary Bajan.
Acting Chief Education Officer Joy Adamson has given a passing grade to the return to school by some secondary school students. Students preparing for CSEC and CAPE exams returned to the classrooms almost a month ago. Ms. Adamson says from all indications the protocols were adhered to and all went well.
All of the secondary schools, by now, they would have finished with their moderation and their SBA preparation. So we would find that most of the secondary schools, they're not in session anymore. There might have been some stragglers doing art, but the secondary schools, they're finished now, and they're getting ready for their formal exams come the 14th as well, the 13th actually of July when they start.
Ms. Adamson says the ministry continues to keep a close eye on the online classes, which have generally been going well. But she wants parents and others to be mindful when classes are in session.
Generally, the students are liking it. And there are some parents who, especially now that they've gone back to work, they found it a little bit challenging because some of the students would have been using their devices. So we're still on that device drive now. And we have some parents who we need to, I was reading an article, a newspaper article on things that parents do during this G Suite time. And I think that parents and guardians and persons in the household, they have to understand that classes are going on in the same way that you would expect. Things happening behind you that you're seeing, and words being said and cursing sometimes going on in the background. So we know we are going into the houses now, so we have to be very careful with what is going on in the background.
Well, the Caribbean overall will not reach its 2020 UNAIDS 90-90-90 target as the fight against the AIDS epidemic continues. Barbados is making progress towards the goal. The 90-90-90 targets stand for having 90% of all people living with HIV diagnosed, having 90% of all diagnosed people undergoing treatment, and having 90% of all people on treatment virally suppressed. During a virtual Caribbean 2020 Global AIDS Update, it was revealed that Barbados has achieved the 90% target for HIV diagnoses and is 89% for viral suppression. UNAIDS Caribbean Director Dr. James Guani says across the Caribbean, new infections are highest among men, and efforts to speed up progress towards the goals should start with increased testing.
We also need to reach out to people, especially in the Caribbean, where we've seen low access to services for men, Let's reach men. Let's identify where they are. Let's go for them. Let's domesticate testing services at the community level. The communities know where people are. So engaging communities, engaging civil society, working collaboratively with all players to increase testing. Once we identify people, put them on treatment, and then do the viral load tests.
Meanwhile, drawing parallels between the AIDS epidemic and the COVID-19 pandemic, Executive Director of the Caribbean Public Health Agency, or CARPHA, Dr. Joy St. John, says collaboration within the region is key in the fight.
The gains in the response to HIV/AIDS were made by actions which were guided by evidence. I challenge the authorities at the national level to examine their data sharing policies to ensure that they make regional data sharing a priority to facilitate analysis to inform decisions at the CARICOM regional level.
With the death of one of their colleagues still fresh in their minds, fisherfolk at the Barinda Cox Fish Market in Oistins have come together to help the less fortunate in the area. Fish vendor Rita Sissy Hunt died in a freak car accident at the market last month. And in a move to keep her legacy alive, vendors have started a fish donation drive. One of the organizers, Ryan Bourne, says a variety of fish will be given away.
We have terrapins, amber fish, which is a very tasty fish which you don't really get unless the sargassum is around. You got terrapins we just get all year round, dolphin, kingfish, marlin, basically the fish that we would catch around this time, sharks, those type of fish here. So there's a lot of fish, you can't tell you how much pounds they are because there was something that was donated, so there wasn't weighed.
And parliamentary representative for the area, Ralph Thorne, explains plans are on the cards to remember the late fish vendor.
On Wednesday this week, we will celebrate her birthday. I'm not going to say we would have. We will celebrate her birthday. And today marks the beginning of the celebration of Miss Sissy Hunt's birthday. And you know, normally on a person's birthday, they receive gifts. We're using this event to give a gift on behalf of Sissy Hunt back to the community of Christchurch. This is a fine gesture, and I could not think of a better way to meet the biblical injunction of loving your neighbor. And the fisher folk here are demonstrating that there is love for their neighbor.
Well, still to come, One Caribbean Airline says it's ready to begin flights as soon as next Sunday. Before we get to that, however, here is a tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
If possible, after a hurricane, take photographs of any resultant damage to your home. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines-based One Caribbean Airline is ready to begin regional flights as soon as next Sunday. One Caribbean would like to begin by moving people between St. Vincent, Barbados and St. Lucia, and then within another week to Grenada and Dominica. The move is part of its efforts to fill the void left by LIAT, whose shareholder governments have decided to liquidate the financially troubled airline. The airline operates 2 Saab 30-seaters and a 19-seater aircraft. According to the Vincentian Prime Minister, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, One Caribbean has submitted a proposal to begin to move passengers on the 12th. SVG Air was to also submit a proposal. Dr. Gonsalves has urged the two to coordinate their work. Respect Guyana's sovereignty. That's the demand of APNU and AFC supporters who staged silent protests across the country on Monday over statements from CARICOM on Guyana's electoral matters. Meanwhile, Prime Ministerial candidate Kemraj Ramjatan has revealed that former President Barrett Jagdeo supports an amendment to the Constitution, making the appellate court the final court to rule on matters surrounding the election of a president.
APNU AFC Prime Ministerial candidate Kemraj Ramjatan says it is unlikely that the Caribbean Court of Justice will rule that it has jurisdiction to override the appeal court's decision on the election results declaration case. Ramjatan insists that the appeal court's ruling that more votes cast in Article 177(2)(b) of the Constitution be interpreted as more valid votes cast is final. He notes that under Article 177(4) of the Constitution, the appeal court has exclusive jurisdiction to hear and determine any question as to the validity of an election of a president. It states that insofar as the question depends upon the qualification of any person for election or the interpretation of the Constitution, any decision of the court under this paragraph shall be final.
And that is clearly the provision. It was made and signed and assented to by Barajagdeo. He excluded, when he assented to all the municipal law and even the treaty and all of that, that the CCJ doesn't have jurisdiction. So it is rather, and when we amended also the Constitution, these things were all part and parcel of an assent by Barajagdeo himself. But you know, as I have said in another place, you can have a politician doing one thing today and then arguing the next thing the next day.
Ramjatan says the CCJ must deliver its ruling in accordance with the law.
St. Lucia's Prime Minister Alan Chasni has vowed not to call a general election during the ongoing COVID-19 state of emergency. He says elections are not a priority at this time. HTS St. Lucia reports.
It was just a few months ago when Prime Minister Alan Chasni on his various social media platforms hinted that elections might be around the corner. The announcement was followed by visits to various constituencies which signaled that the polls were imminent. Opponents have criticized Chasni for what they say is outright campaigning during the pandemic. But now it appears that the Prime Minister is walking back his earlier declaration. During an appearance on the Morning Heat on Monday, the government leader indicated that elections were not a major priority at this time.
Elections are not what's on my mind. Right now what's on my mind is the decision that we have to make this week with regards to opening the borders. What's on my mind is trying to help some of the more vulnerable groups in our society, trying to spread the money that we have as much as we can and to affect them. Also, the reality is, as Prime Minister of this country, while I'm not in every single ministry, the responsibility of all the ministries to get the job done falls on me. I get that. I understand that, and I'm accountable to the public for making sure that we could execute things as quickly as possible. So those are the things that are on my mind right now. How do we position St. Lucia to get the economy recovered as quickly as possible?
The Prime Minister says his administration and party would not call an election during the declared state of emergency.
We will continue to review the situation and make the determinations to when we think the right time to have the election is.